Hey guys, we are back updating the power rankings for Big Brother Canada 11 following week 7. And this is obviously going to be an interesting ranking as we are about to have a double eviction. So the next time we do this ranking, this list could be quite a bit different, but we'll get to that when we get there. But there are 8 players to talk about, and let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 8, we have the latest boot from this season, but here we have Hope. And this was to be expected. He was pretty much a target after the veto, and he went home here almost unanimously. And I said this before, but I think Hope's game was pretty underwhelming for the most part, where early on he wasn't really respected. There was obviously a point where he tried to quit. There was the whole letter situation that was used to try to get him DQ'd. And while he did eventually find himself within the crown, he did get pretty unlucky with some certain comp results that resulted in the crown members getting targeted one by one, to where he was just the latest victim of that. And I said this before, but I feel like with those issues I mentioned earlier, I do find it hard to see how he wins the game even if he got to the end. But even in that situation, he was taken out because he was simply on the outs at that point. And I feel like people were willing to keep Koozie around a bit longer as she was a bigger shield for them compared to Hope. So I think it's for all those reasons that Hope's game was actually pretty mediocre, but obviously he's out of the game now, which is a big reason he is here at number 8. And with that, there are 7 players left in the game to talk about, and as usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they are to win based on their current game position. But at number 7, we have the person who is most likely to be evicted on Thursday night, but here we have Kuzie, who was put up initially after Renee won HOH, alongside Ty, as they were the 2 biggest targets coming into that week by the girly pops. And she also came relatively close to winning the veto until she decided to take $1,000 there as a temptation that resulted in Ty winning the veto as a result, which is pretty bad when you think about it. And now she's going to be going home. And I think she herself is pretty resigned to that fact, as she's not really campaigned that hard. And she seems pretty content with her just going out here, which isn't great there. And Koozie is someone that has elements of good gameplay. Like, I think it's pretty impressive that she was able to build the bond that she did. And despite her making suboptimal moves, I find it impressive that she was able to get as far into the game as she was without being directly targeted. But with that said, I think there are some pretty big holes in her game. I think for one, her strategic decision making has been pretty questionable, where I think her wanting to target Zach during week 3 was pretty suboptimal, as I feel like that could have really caused the girly pops to drift away from her, as Zach was obviously a unifying force towards this alliance she created. But through her social game, she was able to recover from that. I think when she wins HOH, she also tries to target Santino and Ty during a point in a game where that was not optimal for her game. And then even beyond that, once the jury phase starts, she starts losing people that would have taken her to the end. Jonathan is someone that would have taken her towards the end. Hope is someone else that would have taken her towards the end. Even Santina is someone that would have taken her deeper into the game. And I feel like through that, she was just losing people that would have taken her deeper into the game until she was someone who was just a big threat with no one that really wanted to take her much deeper in the game. And even this week, she literally had a chance to win the veto until she threw it away just for $1,000. So I think at the end of the day, there are definitely question marks you can give to Koozie's strategic decision making. In general, I think her threat management was pretty lacking as well, to where she was eventually targeted for being this big threat. But there were still enough pros with her game to where she did dominate a decent portion of the game, and she did have a decent social game that allowed her to get through some rounds that she probably shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, there were enough holes in her game to where she was just eventually going to run out of runway, and sure enough, that happens this week. So for all those reasons, she is the most likely to be evicted on Thursday night, and because of that, she is here at number 7. Now moving on to number 6, and we are basically down to the people that will most likely be participating in this double eviction. And admittedly, I don't think there's a clear answer for who's going to go home during this double, as I think so much of it's going to be determined based on the comp results. And through that, there's really a case for anyone to be the next boot after Koozie. And it's just a matter of ordering their long-term prospects, which I think I'm going to be basing this more so for this week's ranking than anything else, because at the end of the day, anything can happen here. But number 6, I did decide to go with Renee, the current HOH, as I feel like Renee is someone who is really in the worst of both worlds, where on one hand, she is the least likely person to win a jury vote. We have seen interviews from the jurors as they lead the house saying that Renee is the least likely person to win a jury vote. Now, yes, this HOH and her technically taking out Koozie here could be seen as a positive, but I still feel like it's not going to be enough to counteract a lot of the negative perception she's had for so much of the season. But on the other hand, the players still in the game think she is a big jury threat and that she would beat almost everyone, which is pretty insane when you think about it, but it also means that they're probably going to be more likely to target her in the coming weeks. So, like I said, I think she's in the worst of both worlds, where she is someone that is perceived to be a big threat to where people are unwilling to take her towards the end of the game, but is also someone that actually doesn't win if she gets to the end, or at least based on what we're hearing right now. And yes, while that could change in the coming weeks, I feel like the fact that people in the game see her as a big threat makes it less likely that she is going to actually get there. So I think it's for all those reasons that I just don't have as much faith in Renee to get to the end of the game. And even if she does, I just don't see how she wins a jury vote with the things we've been hearing from the jury so far. So I think it's for all those reasons that I have her as the least likely of these people to actually win, even if she survives a double, which in itself is also a danger point considering that she can't even play in the HOH. So that opens her up to be targeted during the double. So it's for all those reasons that I can't really see her winning the game. She is here at number 6. Now we're moving on to number 5, and we have the person that I had at the same relative spot as last week, but here we have Ty. And good on Ty, he won another veto. And I think that's really the thing that's keeping him above Renee for me, is his comp ability, as we are now seeing him going on a run per se, where yes, he was targeted coming into the week due to Renee winning the HOH, but he now has won his second veto in a row. And now he's going to the double where he is one of the bigger competitors on the board. And I could easily see him like clutching out in either the HOH or the veto. And not to mention the fact that he's not even guaranteed to be targeted even if he doesn't win the HOH, as we know that Daniel is a bit more inclined to keep him in the game over the girly pops. Now, granted, if a girly pop were to win the HOH, he probably will be seeing the block. But considering that he is one of the better competitors, especially now that Koozie will be out of the game, who was one of the better competitors against him, but I think now Ty is in an interesting spot to where he could easily get through that round. And from that point on, he just needs to win a couple more comps in order to get to the end. Now, is it a guarantee that he's going to win out? I don't know. Is it a guarantee that him winning out will garner him respect? There is a chance that could happen, which is crazy when you think about it. Now, at the end of the day, I still think that he is someone that has a pretty bad social game. I think he is someone that is going to have a hard time winning over people, even if he does win out and make certain moves along the way, to where I think he is one of the less likely people to win a jury vote. But it's at least a potential for him to win out and get towards the end that puts him above Renee for me. So because of that, he is here number 5. Now moving on to number 4, and this person moved down mainly due to my sense of their jury chances at this point, but here we have Shenaya, and I think Shenaya is probably one of the safer people coming into this double, where yes, there aren't any guarantees, but I think if most people win HOH, she shouldn't be in direct danger. However, I think at this point, it's also becoming clear that of the girly pops, she isn't as likely to win a jury vote. Now, yes, I do think she probably beats Renee. However, I think at this point, I am inclined to say that she loses to Claudia, and in general, she obviously loses to Anika and Daniel as well. I think Shenaya is probably less likely to win than I gave her credit for before, despite her being in a more secure position to get deeper into the game, and I think that's a big reason I did drop her this week. Now, yes, things could still change. I mean, there's still a couple weeks left, but I think with me thinking that she's less likely to win a jury vote now, I did decide to bump her down to number 4. Now we're moving on to number 3, and we actually have the highest ranked girly pop, but here we have Claudia. And simply this is because I think Claudia is probably the most likely of the girly pops to win a jury vote if she gets to the end. And I think with this double coming up, I think the girly pops could be in an interesting spot. Now, granted, I think there's still plenty of danger for Claudia to go home during this double, but I think at this point, if she gets towards the end, I would have a bit more faith in her to win a jury vote compared to certain other options. But again, I feel like the top 2 people are the 2 biggest jury threats left in the game, which is why she is here at number 3. Now I'm moving on to number 2, and as I said a moment ago, I feel like these 2 are probably the most likely to win a jury vote. Although, again, there are still a couple weeks left, things could change. But at number 2, I did decide to go with Anika, who is currently on the block. albeit against Koozie, and she was very clearly the pawn in that situation. I still think Anika is probably a bit more likely to win a jury vote than the other girly pops. Now, if she does get to the end with one of them and maybe one of them goes on a comp run, I think she would definitely be in for a closer jury vote, although I still would probably give Anika the edge over them. And I think Anika's probably one of these safer bets going into the double, where I feel like Daniel is a bit more likely to be targeted over her at this point. And plus, I don't think people are quite seeing Anika as being a big jury threat, at least the people in the game at least. So in a lot of ways, she's actually the opposite of Renee, who is not a jury threat, but is seen as such by the players in the game, to where I think Anika could be pretty dangerous, to where I feel like someone could try to take it to the end, thinking that she'll be an easy win, only to realize that she actually has plenty of locked jury votes. So I think that was enough to give her the edge over the rest of the girly pops. However, I feel like the one person she loses to is the person she actually wants to take to the end, which was enough to knock her down to number 2. And now, at number 1, the person I believe is the most likely to win Big Brother Canada 11 right now is still Daniel. Now, I will say that there is actually more of a danger spot for Daniel coming into this double, where if a girly pop wins HOH, tries to target Ty, and then Ty wins the veto, then I think that puts Daniel in a bit of an awkward spot to where he'll probably be on the block against Anika. Now, yes, there's a chance that he could also be up against Renee, depending on how things go. But if he's on the block against Anika, I think there's a serious chance that he could be voted out in that situation, which wouldn't be great. However, I also have to give him some credit for getting Ty on his side, to where if Ty wins HOH, then I think he's probably less likely to be targeted in that situation. And I think in general, him deciding to want to keep Ty around over the rest of the girly pops is probably pretty good for him as well, as it keeps a pretty good big target ahead of them. And plus, Ty is probably someone that he still beats in a jury vote. I think Daniel is probably the biggest jury threat left in the game at this point after Kuzie leaves. It's just a matter of how he can get there. And I think while there is more of a danger spot, I'm still going to give him the edge here simply because I think he is someone that if he survives a double, I think he should be pretty well poised to get towards the end of the game and potentially win that game. Now, I will also say that him losing Kuzie this week is probably not ideal, as I think Kuzie probably would have been a better shield to have in front compared to Ty, though I can also understand his thinking of wanting to cut Kuzie, as he's less likely to win against Kuzie at the end compared to Ty. So I think those were considerations, but I think at the end of the day, I'm still probably going to have Daniel here number 1, simply because I think he's probably the most likely to actually win if he gets to the end, and I think there's a reasonable path there, so because of that, he is here number 1. And there we go, that will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, really helps out with the channel. Now tonight there will be the double eviction, and I'm probably planning to live stream it. Now it isn't a guarantee, and I'll let you know if the plan changes. However, if all goes according to plan, then I probably will be live streaming my reaction to the double, so stay tuned for that if that's a thing. I'll be back again next week to update the power rankings again, so stay tuned for that. I will also be updating power rankings for Survivor 44 as that is airing, so stay tuned for that as well. And if you haven't already, be sure to join my Discord server, which you can join by clicking the link in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way, but for now, that's the video. See ya.